to be made by 2020. So Hawaii is just kind of sneaking in here under the, I always say, last but not least, right? So we're going to get in here just under the deadline. But this is a federally mandated project that has to be completed. So we're well on our way, and Hawaii's done a lot of work getting themselves in shape to be ready for this. So eWIC, it is a better way to pay, and it's a better way to get paid. So we've gotten positive feedback from stores and participants. So again, it's a federally mandated project that's supposed to be completed by 2020. Hawaii's goal, we're going to start the pilot in October of 2019. So it's just really right around the corner. The first rollout, after the pilot area, the pilot area is going to be in Kauai, and we're going to go over all that when we're kind of through most of this PowerPoint. We'll turn that back over. But then the first rollout area after the pilot will start first quarter of 2020, which would be in March. And then the total transition will be complete, where no more checks will be out there for shoppers to use around August of 2020. And then the last day for you to submit checks would be September 15th of 2020. So yes, progress does take partnerships, and so Hawaii's getting there with their new partners, which is us, so CDP and FIS. Again, I'm Jim Chilcote, and I'm with CDP, and we do have our FIS partner in this, and we're going to kind of define a little bit about who does what on these teams here as we go through this PowerPoint. So contact information for FIS and CDP. So for retailer wise, I am the lead for the CDP side, which is pretty much the integrated side of the house. So stores that are integrated, that have systems that do, debit, credit, SNAP today, that will also have eWIC built into that. Kelsey Voller, she's the project manager for FIS, and she's going to be more handling the stand-by-side stores. So smaller stores that do not have the capability to have a larger integrated system that has everything built into one, she would be managing that stand-by-side process if you needed a stand-by-side device to transact that eWIC transaction. So what do we do? So custom data processing, or CDP as everybody calls us, we do have the host processing system. So basically we are the endpoint. We process. So our host processing center sits in Frankfort, Kentucky. So on the time zone grid, we're 6 hours ahead of you, so we're quite a ways away. But the transactions flow here very quickly. We actually did Guam, I guess a little over a year ago. Guam went live, and of course they're a little farther out in the ocean than you all are. And it was just amazing to me to sit there and watch transactions be approved so quickly, knowing that our server is 7,000 miles away. So even though I'm a tech geek and it's really cool and I understand all this stuff, it's still just as amazing when you think about it. So anyway, your transactions are going to come off the islands, come to our host. Oops, let me mute that. Going to come to our host processing center here in Kentucky. So that host processing system, we call it WIC Direct. We built this over 10 years ago when we started this process back when we did our first WIC agency, which was Kentucky. So we built this thing from the ground up just for processing eWIC transactions. So it's a pretty smart system, and it's worked very well. As you can see, we're live now in 32 WIC agencies. California just went live last week with their pilot, so they were our 32nd WIC agency. So we're not new at this. We've been around the block. We've been doing this since 2009. So we're 10 years into the process. So you can have some confidence to know that we're just not brand new at this, and we actually do know a little bit about what we're doing here. So we're going to be very helpful to you to get your stores up and ready to go to process those eWIC cards as they come into your store. We also provide support to the integrated vendors. We also, my team, we're the ones that certify and test the electronic cash register systems to make sure that eWIC is working as it should. So FIS, our partner in this, They facilitate the contracting and the installation and the training of the stand-beside point of sale devices. They write the training materials for the stand-beside, and they do provide the vendor help desk for operational issues. So we're just, like I said, we're a team in this. We've been a team in this from almost the beginning, work seamlessly together, and like I said, we're just happy to have the partnership of FIS in these contracts. So let's look at some of the benefits of eWIC. For the participants, so eWIC it's just a greater, it's just more, it has greater flexibility and convenience for the shopper. So, you know, today when WIC shoppers are out there, they've got to make sure that they've got their checks with them when they go shopping. If they left them, you know, if they didn't grab them on the way out the door, left them laying on the table, you know, which is, it's a lot more easy. It's easier to leave checks at home than it is the card. You know, the card's going to be stuck in your wallet, so you're pretty much always going to have that with you. So it just gives you a greater flexibility. Just know that you've got that card with you. So the most important thing about eWIC, well, there's lots of important things, but one of the coolest things about it is, you know, today with a check, you've got to buy everything that's on the check or you lose the benefits. With eWIC, you know, you don't have to do that. You can just buy whatever you need at the time. As long as you have current benefits, you know, they get a month's worth of benefits, just like the checks. They get a month's worth of benefits at a time. So when they have benefits on their card, they can walk into a store, they can buy just a gallon of milk and leave those other benefits on there to be used another time. They can buy a can of formula, they can buy cheese, they can buy whatever. They can buy everything that they're allowed to buy, but they don't have to. So that's the milk, what they possibly did with that, because I certainly don't have room for 4 gallons of milk in my refrigerator. So this greater flexibility is fantastic for the participants. You know, they don't have to keep track of all those members, the family members' checks anymore. You know, you can have multiple checks. You know, you get there, you grab checks, you thought you had the right checks and you didn't have the right checks. You had next month's checks. And so, you know, just having that card is just such a benefit for the shopper, because even the shopper will still be getting 3 months benefits at a time, but only 1 month will be, you know, effective or allowed to be purchased at a time on that card. But at the end of that month, those other benefits just roll right over into the account, and so that same card is used to buy next month's benefits. So again, using the checks, the oversized checks, splitting transactions, having the cashier have to do all of the work that you all do, which we've appreciated so much over the years. But that does call attention to the WIC shopper. You know, we all know that if you see, we've all done it. I mean, you see somebody in line that's got 5 or 6 WIC checks spread out on the belt there. The cashier is trying to go through all this stuff. You walk in behind that person, you might tend to want to get into a different lane because it might take you a little while to get through that. Whereas with the WIC card, it's just, with the eWIC card, it's not like that at all. Like I said, you really can't even tell that a shopper's an eWIC shopper. And I can attest to this. I was in line behind a shopper. It's probably been a month ago, but it just stuck in my head. I had a bunch of stuff, and a woman in front of me had a bunch of stuff, and she just went to swipe her first card, and I happened to notice it was a WIC card. So she swiped the card, punched in her PIN. It was in an integrated store, so the mixed basket. She swiped her WIC card, put in the PIN, completed the WIC transaction. With the other stuff, she took out her debit card, swiped her debit card, put in the PIN, and completed that transaction, put the bags in her grocery cart, and walked out to her car. And I don't think anybody besides me knew that she was a WIC shopper, me and the cashier. So, you know, it's just quite handy to just have that card and not carry around the bulky checks anymore. All right. So for the vendors, which is you all, it also benefits you. So with the eWIC transaction, the results are known immediately. There's no more rejections due to, you know, post-date or stale checks. If you took a check that was out of date, maybe somebody brought in the wrong check and the cashier didn't notice it, and they processed that check mistakenly, you know, those things can be rejected. Missing signatures, incorrect items purchased, you know, items over the maximum value. All of these things are known in lane at the time of the transaction. So the dates, those are encoded into the account. I mean, so when the card's swiped, the cash register system knows what items are available to be purchased within those dates. Like I said, there's no signature required. The only thing that you need to do a WIC purchase is the card and the PIN. So if my wife gives me the WIC card and the PIN, I can certainly go shopping. I mean, I could give it to my mother and she could go shopping as long as she's got the card and the PIN. So again, there's no identification, there's no pictures, there's no signatures, just card and PIN, just like a debit transaction. Items that might be over the maximum value, we call those not to exceed amounts or maximum allowable reimbursement amounts, so the NTE or the MAR amounts. So each item will have a maximum amount, just like they do in the paper world today. But the difference is that if an item happens to go over that, you're only going to be paid up to that. The item will go through with that issue. You're just going to be paid up to that maximum amount. So, for example, if shopper brought up a gallon of milk for, let's say, $5, and the maximum value or maximum price on that item was $4.95, it would go through just fine. You're going to be paid $4.95 instead of the $5, and all of that will be reported back to you as you get your reconciliation reports, from your third-party processors. However you get recon today, you're going to get recon for eWIC that'll have that information in there, so it'll be known. So there's no, you're not going to get rejected. You don't lose anything. You're just going to get paid up to that maximum amount, which is, the agreement you have today. No more delayed payments. I mean, you're going to be paid just pretty much the next day. We always say the next day or two, because there is a cutoff, and whatever this cutoff is, it's actually 6 p.m. Central Time, so that could be noon, like noon, depending on the time zone, noon or 1 o'clock your time. So any transaction before that time, you're going to be paid the next day. Any transaction after that time, you'll be paid the day after that, the following day. So it's before noon, you get paid the next day. Afternoon, you get paid the day after that. No more price surveys. Just a lot less work for eWIC. Today you've got to deal with all those checks in the back. You have to do price surveys, all this stuff. You don't have to shuffle those checks around anymore. You're just going to get paid just like you do with debit credit. You're going to swipe cards, you're going to sell product, and then you're going to get reconciliation report, and the money's going to go directly into your account. You don't have to go back and search through checks to make sure dates are right and all of that stuff that you do today. So eWIC, just moving you forward. We're definitely we're in the 21st century, and we are bringing eWIC to that as well. So here's a first glimpse of the Hawaii WIC card. So on the left there, you'll see the picture of the turtle on the card, and you'll notice the only thing on the card really just says Hawaii eWIC, with the beautiful picture there, and then the card number, the account number, is there in black on the bottom. That's the only thing that's on the account. There's no name, there's no address, there's nothing. It's just the account number. Then of course on the back of the card, you've got the mag stripe, and then you've got some information there, website, number to call if the shopper has issues, directions about if the card's lost, what to do with it, things like that. So that's the card front and the back. Hawaii does have an 8-digit BIN, so that 8-digit BIN down there is 610-81800. That is the Hawaii WIC BIN number. So that's one thing I do is I work with the retailers and corporations to make sure that that BIN gets into the right place, and so things can transact as they should. The PAN length, the account numbers, they're a 16-digit length. So I mean, just see 4 sets of 4 numbers there. So we got a 16-digit PAN, which is pretty much what all WIC cards are today.
Hi, Jim. This is Journey. I just have a question for you. We do have a question in the chat, and I'm wondering if you want me to hold those until a specific time, or would you like to go ahead and answer?
I had that lowered down, Journey. I apologize. I didn't see the chat. So yeah, we can go ahead and stop. I mean, this is informal. We can stop and.
Okay, just the first question that I received is, how does WIC customers keep track of items left on the WIC card?
Right. Yeah, and we will get to that, but I'll address that now. So there's multiple ways to track the balance, but the one thing that you're going to get, so in your store, every time a purchase is made, a WIC purchase is made, the last thing that prints on the receipt is the ending balance. So they always have the ending balance from the receipt. They can do a balance inquiry. I mean, I guess there's other ways that they can get their balance. So there's multiple ways that they can keep their balance. When they leave the clinic, they get a sheet printed out with what their current balance is at that time. But like I said, every time they do a transaction, they can see the balance there at the end. They can go into a store and do what we call just a standalone balance inquiry, where you just put it in a balance inquiry mode, swipe the card, they put in their PIN, and it prints out what the balance is. And Journey, honestly, I'm going to have to ask you. I can't remember exactly the things that Hawaii will be doing to other things that they could do for balance. If you wanted to
yes. Hawaii WIC participants also have the ability to utilize products that will be provided by FIS CDP. One of those is an interactive voice response line. We call it the IVR. Participants can call into this IVR at any time and give over certain information to authorize their access to their account via the IVR and obtain their benefits through there. Additionally, one other way that they can do this is also there is an online web portal called EBT Edge. And that too is just another tool that participants can log online and enter in information to validate that it's them and receive their information that way as well.
Okay, thanks, Dream. I do see the other question down there. So like I said, I had the chat box lowered down, but I didn't realize it was out of my vision there. So the other question was, if the eWIC max amount is $6 for milk, but the retail total is $7, eWIC will pay $6, and the store would lose out on the extra dollar. And that is correct. I mean, your agreement is you're going to be paid up to the maximum value for a product. So you cannot collect that extra dollar from the shopper. You're just going to be paid up to the maximum amount. So like I said, again, we've been doing this for 10 years, and the maximum prices are pretty liberal, and not that it doesn't ever happen, but it and it does happen. But like I said, you're just going to be paid up to that maximum amount.
Hey Jim, this is Michael from WIC. So to clarify, it's pretty much similar to the system we have now with our NTEs. So the max amounts are based on the vendor prices and what they're charging. So the only difference vendors are going to see now is before, when that maximum price is exceeded, the check would be rejected and they would receive no payment. So that would be that, and then that's the appeal process that our vendors do now. So for example, like you said, if a store sold $7 milk, but we set our threshold for $6, that check would be rejected, and they'd have to mail it to me for appeal. And again, those thresholds are currently established by that WIC price, the vendor price survey that you all just completed. So the difference now is our vendors there will be no payment rejection. They will just be, you will all be reimbursed at the maximum amount threshold that is established, similar to how it is now, based on all your current prices. And then that difference, so for example, the $1 you will see during your reconciliation that Jim just mentioned earlier. And then that difference, that can be, there is a process for that to be addressed and appealed if necessary, for that $1 difference, for example. So just to clarify.
Thanks, Michael.
And no, vendors do not have access to the current maximum value list. Unfortunately, we are not allowed to provide that information. It's based on price surveys gathered from all of our vendors. So I'm just answering the chat question up there. So no, we get all the information from all of our vendors. Let's say we get your price for $1 or whatever for a gallon of milk. We gather all your prices, and then based on what all of your prices are, we establish a maximum threshold that we will reimburse you for that gallon of milk. But we cannot share other prices. We would essentially be sharing milk prices of all the vendors to all the other vendors, and we cannot do that, unfortunately.
Okay, thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on, and like I said, if we get other questions, and Journey, if I miss questions, feel free to stop me, and we'll get them answered. So we're going to talk a little bit more about WIC checks versus the eWIC card. So we've touched a little bit on this, but so all family members, the WIC benefits are going to combined into one account, kind of like we talked about. If you say if there's 3 people in the family that might be on WIC, and you've got, so you go and you get checks, you could have 3 checks for each one of those, you could have 9 checks. All of these benefits are combined onto the family card. So you just have to carry on one card and not have to worry about trying to find all those checks. So that's very cool. So a family can, again, make as many purchases during the month as needed, as long as they have the available benefits on the account. So, again, people shop still pretty much about three to 4 times a month, I think is about the average. But some people may keep to the same shopping habits. They could go in and still try to buy everything at once, but we do see people really diversify or change up their shopping habits once they realize they don't have to buy everything, and they can just buy as little as they need. Just get it, go to the store just like you and I would, to get what we need when we need it. So in the integrated systems, they can purchase the WIC items and the non-WIC items, that's what we call a mixed basket. So mixed basket is everything on the belt that they brought up as they're shopping, and it's in one transaction. So that's what we call a mixed basket. Now the smaller stores that may have the stand beside device, that still will be a WIC only transaction. So they still have to separate their items if you were using a stand beside. But stores that use a integrated system that have eWIC, debit, credit, SNAP, everything built into one system, everything can be purchased at one time. And like I said, it truly is everything on the belt. Shopper or the cashier starts scanning. Cashier has no need to know whether you're a WIC shopper or not. She just starts scanning it all. She hits the total button. But the important thing is that the WIC tender, the WIC card needs to be swiped first because it's the most restrictive. So that's what Hawaii will train their WIC participants on when they get those cards, is that WIC card's got to be swiped first, because obviously if you swiped a debit card, or it could be a SNAP card, any other payment type, it would pretty much pay for everything in the account. So you start with the most restrictive and work down. So like I said, WIC card would go first, but say everything on the belt, mixed basket, don't even need to know they're a WIC shopper, just swipe the card. So the things that WIC shoppers are no longer required to do, again, they don't need to require or declare that they're a WIC shopper in most cases. In the stand beside, they would have to let them know that, because it is a WIC only transaction, so they would have to kind of declare and show them the WIC card. Again, they don't have to buy all their WIC items at once with eWIC. They don't have to separate their items by check. They don't have to keep track of the multiple sets of checks. It's kind of a recurring theme I keep weaving throughout this presentation, because it's just such a drastic difference for everybody. Just so much better for the shopper and for the store. All right, so more on the WIC checks versus eWIC cards. With eWIC, the cashiers are no longer required, so this is benefits for you. Again, you don't have to collect or validate customer ID and signature. eWIC just uses the card and the PIN. Like I said, anybody with the card and the PIN can use the card. So we make sure, we tell the shoppers, don't write your PIN number on the back of your card. Don't keep it in a little container that you write the PIN on. Keep the PIN definitely separate from the card. So if they do lose the card, no one can use the card. They can try to use the card, but if they don't know the PIN, it's gonna lock. And these will lock just like a debit credit card. You can lock after 3 or 4 tries. I can't remember exactly which we landed on at Hawaii, but the PIN will lock after a few tries. So again, you don't have to check the date ranges of the checks. They just swipe the card, and then the system will know from the benefits on the card what benefits are allowed in this current time period. So that, again, just a lot of less work. So if I'm a cashier and I'm listening to this, I'm breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief, because I don't have to be the person that has to go through all of that and make sure that everything is correct. You don't have to manually verify the quantity and type of food anymore. So it's just all basically goes to the system. The items are handled or are sorted out by what we call the APL file, which is the approved product list. We're going to talk a little bit about that more in a minute, but that's kind of the new WIC Bible is the APL file. It's if the item is not on the APL file, it can't be purchased. All right, so yeah, that's not a picture of me. But so this is kind of the paper cashier. I'm sure some of you had to feel this way because you are the stopping point. You know, you as a cashier or as a store, you know, you're responsible to make sure that that person's walking out of there with the right items. You've got to look at the check. You've got to compare it to the products that are being presented. Got to make sure the right milk. You know, are they supposed to get whole milk? They're supposed to get low-fat milk. Is this the right formula? You know, is this the right cheese? You know, all of that has to be done by the cashier, and it just makes me tired to think of how much you all have had to do over the years. You know, you've done it great, but this is going to be so much better for you, and it's just so much fun for us to, you know, come watch as stores go live, and we're watching cashiers get our first taste, you know, of eWIC and how easy it is. So again, you know, the cashier doesn't need to be the police anymore. If an item doesn't scan, it does not go through, there's no overrides, there's nothing you can do as a cashier to make that item go through. If it doesn't work, you know, we're going to go through a little bit of this later, but there's no overrides that the cashier can do to make that item go through. So it takes you totally out of that loop of having to, you know, nobody can argue with you. They can, but you just need to tell them that, you know, if they think they're getting the wrong item, they need to, you know, take it back to the. So this is the new eWIC Happy Cashier. So with eWIC, you know, obviously, you know, the system's responsible for determining which items the shopper can buy, in what quantity, and it just totally shifts that responsibility from the cashier to the system, which can just make for, you know, obviously a more pleasant experience between the cashier and the shopper. I'm sure you all could tell some stories about some incidents in lane, not only with WIC shoppers, but any shopper. Okay, we mentioned the APL file. So what is the APL file? So it's the approved product list or the authorized product list, except this file, it's managed by Hawaii WIC, and it includes all the items that are allowed to be purchased with the Hawaii WIC card. So every single item that Hawaii approves, it's got to be on there today, or got to be on the APL file. That doesn't mean everybody can buy every item that's on that, because along with this APL file, what makes the magic of the system work is that, you know, when the card is swiped and the PIN is entered, the system pulls down the available balance for that shopper. So, when the transaction starts, the system knows what the shopper is allowed to buy, and it's pretty much broken down by, you know, like how many pounds of cheese, how many dozen eggs, you know, how many ounces of cereal. All of that is on that card. You know, are you getting whole milk or low-fat milk? You know, which kind of juice are you supposed to get? You know, all that is on the account. So when the items are scanned, the system looks at, number one, is it an approved WIC item? Yes, that checks that box. Is it an item that the shopper can buy? Yes, checks that box. And then that goes into the little hopper that says, or the little basket in the system that says the shopper can buy this item. So it does that for each item that's been scanned. So like I said, the system is doing all the work, and the cashier does not have to do any of that anymore. So yay. Okay, so again, there's two ways to process eWIC. An integrated system, which we've talked about. Those are the ones that can do debit, credit, SNAP, everything in one system. Debit, credit, SNAP, eWIC, all in one system. And then the standby side is just a WIC only system, or in some cases, I guess it could be a SNAP and a WIC device together. But the integrated system does everything on the belt all at once. The standby side system is WIC by itself, has to be separated out. So an integrated system, most of the vendors will be using an integrated system there in Hawaii. We've been working on the list, and there's very few that are on the standby side list as we see it today. So again, excuse me. I'm Jim Chilcutt, and I am the Retailer Integration Manager for CDP. And, you know, my main focus is to get your system ready and to process eWIC. And I've worked with some of you already. We're continuing to work to make sure that everybody is in line to get their system ready to go for eWIC. So that's my purpose in this project, is to get the integrated shoppers or the integrated stores ready to go and ready to process eWIC. Whereas, you know, Kelsey on the other side, she is the person that's going to be helping with the stand beside along with the state. So the good news about integrated systems is many of the systems, you know, already have been developed and certified for eWIC. Back when we started this 10 years ago, we go into a brand new eWIC project, and, you know, more than half of the stores would be stand beside as other people were developing the eWIC systems. But, you know, 10 years later, most of the systems already, you know, have eWIC built into them. So that's why there's very few stand besides anymore, but there are. If you don't have a current newer system that, of course, you can have a newer system, but if you don't have a newer system that actually has WIC built into it, you know, then you will be using that stand beside. Systems that have been previously certified in other WIC agencies that we hold the contract in, say for instance California or Washington or Oregon, any of those states where we've certified products, those Hawaii will accept those certifications, so we don't have to go through and recertify every system. And when I say certify, I mean like in a lab situation where we totally, you know, check the system out and make sure it does everything that it's supposed to do. We still require that before we go live, what we call a level 3 in-store test. We'll still test the system to make sure it works in the store, but we're not going to go in to do lab certifications for systems that we've already done that on. So that's the good news, is that, like I said, systems that are already working in other states of ours that you all are using, those will be accepted and moved right in. Systems that are stores that do have self-checkouts, that have self-checkouts for WIC. A lot of systems don't have self-checkout for WIC. It's moving that way. But like I said, it's usually the bigger chains have got the self-checkout for WIC. But, you know, we're to entertain self-checkout in any way. If your stores, if you have an integrated system and you're doing eWIC and you can get your self-checkout ready to go for eWIC, we would look at it pretty closely, but, you know, that's something we can talk about and move forward with. But so self-checkout is allowed for integrated only, obviously. So again, the integrated systems, I mean, they can process that mixed basket we're talking about. So you're just, you know, everything on the belts. Like I said, you show up, I go shopping, I just get everything in there. I get my eggs and my juice, my cheese and my formula, and I also get my, you know, my Coke and my chips and my pretzels for the ball game. All that can be put in the basket and run through at one time. And as the card's swiped, things are sorted out at that time. So kind of the process of the integrated system, like I said, the cashier scans all the items in the customer's basket, and the cashier pretty much follows the same steps, even if the customer indicates they're using a WIC benefits and they swipe their card during or after the transaction. So it's just really like any other transaction in an integrated system. You're scanning the items, you're hitting the total, you're totaling the order. PIN pad comes alive, the shopper would swipe their WIC card and put in their PIN and move forward with that. So like I said, in an integrated system, the customer does not have to separate their WIC and their non-WIC items. So I mean, that's the wonderful thing about that. Just everything on the belt. Don't have to order them out. Don't have to put certain things in order. Just everything on the belt in an integrated system. So then the stand beside system, again, this is just for vendors that don't have that integrated system we've been talking about. I mean, the Hawaii WIC program, they're going to be contacting you directly, and together with FIS, they're going to work with you to make sure that you get the equipment, the equipment you need when you need it. They're going to be working with you. You know, agreements will need to be signed and all of that. But Hawaii WIC will be working with you on that. And just a quick highlight of, you know, the stand beside. Like I said, what you see right there is in the middle. That's the stand beside POS device, and then off to the right, that's the PIN pad that can be handed across. So the card's swiped on the POS device, and then the PIN is entered on the PIN pad as it's handed to the shopper. And the thing that's different, you'll notice it's different. You know, if you look at this, you think, well, I use that for SNAP today. But the difference about that handheld scanner out there to the left is that even on a stand beside, all those WIC items have to be scanned. So, you know, you're not just punching in dollar amounts, you're still identifying the product by scanning that UPC code. So even on the Stambus side, you still have that handheld scanner. But in Hawaii and FIS, we'll be working with you and explaining more about how all that works as we get closer. So again, it's very important that, and definitely take note of the words that I'm about to speak, that, you have to use a authorized or a certified system to process eWIC. And if somebody shows up and tries to start selling you some system that they say is eWIC capable, has been certified, please reach out to Hawaii, reach out to me or to my team, and we'll work with you to make sure there that try to take advantage. And because I've gotten calls before from groups that say that, or stores that will say that, hey, I'm looking at this system, they say it's been certified for eWIC, can you take a look at it? And and I never heard of it. So it's important, before you go down a financial path or sign any type of contract or agreement, that you work with Hawaii WIC or us at CDP FIS to make sure that what you're going after is a certified product, because we don't want anybody getting in a situation that might hurt you financially. So we want to be a partner with you in getting eWIC ready to go for your store. Again, so if, like I mentioned before, down at the bottom, the level 3 of the live shopping in-store test, that is required. Like, say, even if the system's been certified in another state, we're gonna be out there in the store testing it just to make sure it's working as it should in your store, because we don't want shoppers coming in and can't purchase WIC as they expect to. We want it to be just a seamless, smooth process. So we're all going to be teammates working this to try to get to the end here. Okay, types of receipts. There are basically 3 types of receipts that you would see in doing WIC transactions. The first right there is just what we call a benefit balance. That's what we talked about. Another way to get your balance, to know what's on your account. Any eWIC system has the ability to print out just a balance inquiry outside of the transaction. So if, like I said, if you went in the store and you had your balance written down on something else and you just didn't have it with you, you could go up and get that, actually hand the card to or you can ask the cashier, say, I want to do a balance inquiry, and you swipe your card, put in your PIN number, and it's just going to print out the balance slip. Like I said, it's got nothing to do with a financial transaction. It's just that balance slip. So that's one type of receipt you can get. The other mid-transaction receipt, that's what we call, that happens in the middle of the transaction. Like I said, the cashier, excuse me, I'm kind of getting over a little cold here. The mid-transaction receipt, that's created after the cashier totals the order, everything's been scanned, totals the order, the shopper swipes their card and puts in their PIN number, and once they hit enter after hitting their servers all the way over here in Frankfort, Kentucky, and sends back the available balance that shopper has. So in just a few seconds time, you get the balance, the cash register system looks at the balance, looks at what's been scanned, looks at the APL file, and it prints out 2 slips. That mid-transaction receipt contains the beginning balance, which shows what the person has to begin with before the transaction happens. So it's got, so many pounds of cheese, so many dozen eggs, so many ounces of cereal, and so on. So that's the beginning balance. And then it'll print a slip that'll say, in this transaction, from what we see and what we've scanned, WIC's going to pay for these items. So those items be listed. So like if you had brought up cereal and you brought up eggs, you brought up cheese, it'll show you that, WIC's going to pay for this cheese, it's going to pay for those eggs, it's going to pay for that cereal. And so those slips are handed straight to the shopper. And then the shopper looks at that and it makes a decision, like, okay, that's kind of what I expect. And on the PIN pad, there's going to be a yes or no, or okay or cancel on the PIN pad, green and red button. And if you're okay with the transaction, you would hit green. And what that does, that would send the transaction for approval again to our servers. And then we would send the approval back. And then the WIC transaction would be completed. and then that balance remaining, the things that WIC didn't pay for, would be sitting there to be paid for with another tender types. This is where the mixed basket comes in. So WIC paid for, these 6 items, but there's 2 items left. My potato chips and my Coca-Cola, they're still sitting there to be paid for with something else. So then I would swipe, my debit card or pay cash for those items. And you just basically keep throwing tender types and cash at the transaction balance until it goes to 0. And then once it's at 0, then the transaction is over. So anyway, and then once you complete the transaction, the balance drops to 0, the cash register system will print out that final receipt that shows everything that happened in that transaction. Usually consists of the beginning balance, the items scanned, the totals, what tenders were charged, whether it's WIC, SNAP, debit, credit, all of that's on the cashier or on the receipt. And then at the bottom of that receipt, it shows the ending balance. So the top would show the beginning balance, what you had before you did anything, then items were taken off. Then on the bottom of that receipt, it's going to show that ending balance that you have to go shopping with next time. So those are the receipt types that you get. So again, at the end of the day, things to feel good about, as a retailer, as a WIC vendor, you're providing a better shopping experience for the WIC customer, a lot better shopping experience. I hope you'll see that. And you're going to also know that you provided the correct food items to the shopper in the right quantity. The wrong formula didn't get given, which is important, obviously, because, in the check world, if you gave the wrong formula, you could, that check could come back and you wouldn't be paid for that check. Things like that can happen, but the system validates and verifies items by type and quantity. So you don't have to worry about that you got a brand new cashier that, maybe he's not good at this, they don't have to be the ones doing that anymore. Then you pretty much, after the transaction is done, you can just sit back and wait for the payment to hit your account. And again, the stores can generally expect to be reimbursed, the next day. All right. All right, so questions, let's see here. All right, so we're at Q&A here. I don't know if, Journey, if we want to, how we want to handle this.
Well, I can certainly unmute everyone if anyone would like to speak up and ask a question. Do you want me to go ahead and do that?
Real quick, this is
Yes.
Michael. I've been trying to keep up with the chat questions, but there may have been some I missed. There was a couple of, one question that's specific perhaps to Jim. Counterpoint POS, are you familiar, POS system, are you familiar with that? And is that something you folks can work with?
Counterpoint, I'm not familiar with. Of course, I always want to go look at it because sometimes things have different names, but off the top of my head, I'm not familiar with Counterpoint.
Okay, so we'll follow up on that one. And then I think there was a question regarding your servers crashing during when a vendor sends send transaction to servers and servers go down. Is there what's the track record on those servers being up and running and available for a vendor?
Oh, so I mean the track record's great. So, of course, now I will just say that there's lots of things that can play into this because it's a real-time online transaction, as your question points to. That there are things that can impact that. That can be internet connection, on your side. Your internet connection coming out of your store. If somebody's out there with a backhoe decides to cut through your main line, your communications go down the middle of a transaction, then you're done. A third-party processor could have an issue. Say if you're just transacting through WorldPay or First Data and they have an issue, that could impact, and again, we as the endpoint, if we have an issue on our server, that can have impact as well. But track record is excellent, and I'm knocking on some wood here. But like I said, our uptime is fantastic, and like I said, we, not that we don't have issues from time to time, but as a rule, we're very proud of our track record. But there is no, just to maybe keep the next question from coming, there is nothing you can do there's no offline eWIC transaction. You know, for some reason your system's down, somebody comes into your store, there's nothing you can do. There's no voucher. There's nothing you can do. You just have to wait for the system to come back up. So, you know, like I said, it's online. It's up. It's on or it's off. There's no manual paper intervention there.
So yes, we if you are offline, then you will be unable to submit WIC transactions until we get back online. So there's, yes. Also, a question regarding a card swipe and it doesn't read for whatever reason. Is there a way to manually input a WIC card?
Yes, excellent question. So yes, so you can, the WIC card can be entered manually because, like I said, it's not a chip card, so it doesn't follow the rules of the you know, the new chip cards. If it doesn't swipe, you know, you can. There is all the systems have a way to manually enter the card. Now, something, and systems are different. Some systems require like three different bad card swipes before, you know, you can input that. Others you can just put in the manual entry mode. But the rule with this obviously is they've got to have the card present. You know, they can't show up with a card written on their, you know, a napkin or something. They've got to have the card present.
Good. And then I know there was a few questions regarding the APL. So just to clarify, the APL list is basically all the items that you have in your store that are WIC allowed, and it'll be the UPC of those said items. So I know our larger retailers, Foodland, Walmart, Safeway, etc., have items flagged as WIC allowed in their POS system. So our APL is essentially that list, you know, organized in such a way that, you know, based on the, you know, milk, etc. That list will always be evolving as new items come to the marketplace. And then there are ways a vendor can submit a UPC for addition to the APL. We will let you folks know how to get those in. Just to head, currently the APL, while it's not ready to be published, we are working on it, and it's about up to 17,000 items. So I know that's a lot. Most of that is fruits and vegetables, which is another fresh fruits and vegetables, that is, which is another issue that we will address as time goes on. Also, questions regarding specific POS systems. But if you could, maybe just email those to me, and I can forward those to Jim, and then we can get those addressed for you folks that are.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yep.
Yeah. So forward it to me, Michael. My contact is here, and then I can get those to Jim, and we can work on those on a one-to-one basis.
Very good. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
Was that all the items in the chat that you were able to get? I think you got them all.
Oh, where's that? Oh, do we have to go out and purchase it? Oh, purchase a stand-beside POS equipment. For WIC only, stand-beside POS equipment, that will be provided by WIC.
Oh, very good.
Free of the machine. For the machine, yes, the machine will be provided.
All right, I am
There are
going.
options up. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Michael. Go ahead. I'm just going to unmute everyone after we go through the questions in the chat, just to see if there's any more outliers before we continue.
Okay. No, that's it. I'm done.
Okay. Here I go. I'm unmuting everyone, and if you would like to ask a question of Jim or Michael, now is the time before we continue. You'll also have an opportunity for questions and answers at the end of this presentation. So here we go. Unmuting.
I have one more thing to add. I'm sorry, Journey.
Yes, go ahead.
Regarding WIC checks, those will be beginning to be phased out as we roll out this project. So I think Jim gave a last day for WIC checks of September 2020. In theory, as we progress in this project and more stores and clinics, or island by island actually, we convert to eWIC, there will be less and less checks to process. So the majority of you will already be done processing checks by that September deadline. But so I mean, it's not hopefully not too big of an issue. That September deadline will be for submitting any check for appeal and to be mailed into the state agency. So that's what that check deadline is. But theoretically, most of you the checks should have worked their way out of the system. A majority of them should have worked their way out of the system by then. But so I think that's all for me. Anyone has any questions?
This is Fulan. Will the eWIC support refund?
As far as returning a WIC item?
Yeah, returning WIC item.
Oh,
Jim,
refunds. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't pick that up. But refunds. So again, there's no refunds in eWIC, just like there are in paper world. So once that transaction is closed, there's nothing you can do about it. Of course, WIC just paid for everything. But if somebody brings back an item, we would expect your store policy to take over. If somebody brings back an item that might be spoiled or something wrong with it, you can exchange things one by one, but that is all outside of the eWIC transaction. You're not going to refund things back to the card. That's just returns are exchange one-to-one per store policy.
Well, we have guidelines for exchange policy currently, and I'll be happy to send those out to vendors. Those guidelines don't change. Basically, like Jim said, if it's spoiled and within reason, they bought a milk a month ago and it's spoiled today. No, that's not within reason, but but exchanges are possible in the WIC environment, but not refunds.
Okay. And I know someone previously asked if the system ever crashed. Along that line, does the system support storing forward?
No. Storing forward pretty much it's going to actually be removed from the rules. That nobody does storing forward for WIC. Out of the last 10 years, 20,000 retailers, nobody's ever gone down the path because it's a risk to you, right? Because in storing forward in WIC, you don't know what that shopper has. With other things, it's you're willing to take a chance, but in WIC, if you were to give away items, you're taking that risk totally yourself because you have no clue to what they've got on their cards. So anyway, but storing forward, like I said, it's going to pretty much be removed from the rules as even being an option for WIC, and we don't support it anymore.
Okay.
So for our stand beside vendors, real quick, the machines we are providing will be for WIC only, but there are options that cost more but will be able to process SNAP and WIC, but the machines provided by WIC will be only able to process WIC transactions.
Michael, I have a question.
Hello.
Hello?
This is Terry?
Yes.
Hi, Terry. What's up?
Okay, it says that there's no price survey for this. How would you determine what would be the maximum value for certain items? Because in between there is price increase. So how would you know?
So currently what we have now is just a price survey. So basically every 6 months we check in with you regarding your prices. And then in between that time, there are buffers in place, which hopefully will compensate for your price fluctuations that you talked about. With eWIC, we get the price of the transaction every time. So we have real-time monitoring of your prices. And then in that way, we will also, the NTEs or the maximum amounts will adjust accordingly based on your real-time actual transactions. So it's actually going to be much more accurate because currently we just, every 6 months we go, hey, what are you charging? But now we can really see, we get more information with all of your transactions And based on that, that is how the new maximum amounts are going to be established.
Okay, all right, cool.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Will there be for the integrated systems, will there be a test environment that we can connect to for testing before we go live?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jim, could you touch on the testing?
Right. Yeah. This is Jim. So yeah. So we don't have it up yet, but we will have test environment, test cards. You know, everything will. It pretty much mirrors production. But yes, we can. Anybody that's interested in that, you know, you've got to have a test environment with test. You know, a test pin pad. You know, you're not going to work out of production. But yeah, if you have a test lab with test pin pads, we'll set you up, you know, with cards, and you can hit our test environment, which is, you know, pretty much up 24/7, except, you know, if it's down for maintenance or something like that. But yeah, just work with me directly on your testing needs, and we'll get you set up.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Perfect.
Hi, Cheyenne. There's a question regarding the LEB. Yes, we will expect our vendors to continue to give the lowest price milk, just because it's already in the, you know, in the you guys are already doing it. So if it isn't broke, we don't need to fix it. So continue on with the LEB concept, and we'll go from there. If your LEB does run out, you know, please notify WIC. That's the current, or notify me, the vendor unit, which is me, and we will act accordingly. But yes, please continue to sell your least expensive milk to our WIC participants. Oh, when is pilot? Oh, we will be covering that in our next slide, perhaps. If there are any more questions. Oh, well, no, here we are. Hawaii's proposed timeline. So Kauai County will be our first, our pilot area. Pilot will begin October 29th. So we will be beginning in earnest to go out to Kauai to get them ready for our pilot, the pilot portion of this project. Statewide rolls out beginning January 2020. So for our Hawaii stores, go live March 3rd, Maui County April 6th, and Hawaii, the island of Hawaii, May 4th, 2020. Currently we have 11 vendors on Kauai. Again, October 29th, so we're looking at our Safeway, Foodland Times folks. We're going to get together with you and get rolling on the Kauai. And next is Oahu, 68 stores. So there's a good representation of the distribution of stores on Oahu. A lot of stores. And let's see, Maui County, April 6th. That includes our vendors on Molokai and Lanai. And Hawaii, 28 stores, May 4th. May the 4th be with you. 28 stores. So what's next? Beginning now to September, again, we're collecting. You might see some of us out there in your stores. We'll let you know we're there. We're going to be scanning items, collecting UPCs. I said we have a preliminary list already. However, we want to go out there and make sure we capture everything. The goal is to have as many UPCs loaded and up and running in the system before we roll out. So there's no issue of we scan an item at the checkout and it's not in the system. We want to we want to go out and make sure we didn't miss anything. August, Jim will go out and we'll begin testing our integrated vendors, checking out your system, your POS systems. Also in August, FIS will send out agreements for our stand-beside vendors. So FIS will be handling the equipment for the stand-beside systems, and an agreement will be sent out to the vendors who will be needing those agreements. Early October, testing eWIC at pilot stores. So early October, the WIC team and will be going out to Kauai and getting ready to pilot. And I'm sorry, there's a typo. Journey, is it October 23rd or 29th? We already had some back and forth on that eWIC pilot start date on Kauai.
I think it's 29th.
It's 29th. Okay. Go live is October 29th. Oh, October 23rd with pilot will start, but we'll go live on the 29th. So go live means shopping will commence. As far as WIC participants will begin purchasing WIC items. That is what the go live means. So what do stores need to do? Keep an eye out for our vendor bulletins. We'll be continuing to send you info. We have sent you some general information. Now this information will be more specific. We're gonna plan to train your store staff. There will be trading materials regarding WIC transactions and the new how transactions will take place. So we're gonna have to begin alerting your store staff regarding this change. Making sure POS equipment is upgraded, tested, and ready to go, which we will commence in August. And ensure cashiers are ready for eWIC transactions. So again, that falls back into the training. And I guess Kauai, you folks are first, so we're going to focus on your staff and cashiers. Get them ready for this new eWIC project. Okay, so a couple of reminders. During the rollout, stores must accept both WIC checks and eWIC cards. So there will be a transition period. We do issue WIC checks typically in 3 months at a time. So there's going to be some overlap between participants having cards and some having checks. So as a result, you will need to be accepting both. Last checks that will be seen will be in late July or early August, and those will most likely be in our last rollout area, so Hawaii. And I think Jim touched on this last day for vendors to submit checks to Hawaii for appeal, September 15th, 2020. And any more questions? And if you do have questions, there's my email address. I believe most of you already are in touch with me. And like I said, for specific POS related questions, yeah, send them on to me, and then I can get them to Jim and we can address them.
Thanks, Michael. That was great. Should I, Michael, Jim, should I allow...
Journey, real quick. Yes, there will be a change in the approved food list between now and, thank you, Todd. Between now and when we begin rollout, that information will be provided to our vendors as soon as possible. So I'm talking maybe next couple weeks. We will let you know. Nothing major, just little tweaks.
Thanks, Michael. I'll open up the floor for any more questions from anyone else since we've reached the last slide of our presentation. Also note that I have been recording this webinar, so it will be provided to the Hawaii State staff to distribute as they see fit, as well as we do have these PowerPoints available. If anyone did not receive a copy, we can get that onto them as well. So with that being said, does anyone else have any questions concerning what was discussed today? It doesn't sound like it, Michael and Jim. I think we're good to go. Unless you have any final comments, I think we can close this meeting out.
Well, I want to thank everybody for taking the time away from your busy schedules to listen to this and to watch the webinar. So appreciate that, and feel free to reach out to me, Jim. And like I said, if you have any questions at all, I'm sure you will. So so I'm here for is to make sure that you have a smooth transition into eWIC.
And yep, same here. Feel free to contact me, call me regarding any questions. If I don't know the answer, I'll make sure to get back to you and get you an answer. And Adele, we come to collect a UPC and you don't happen to have an item in stock. The items generally are going to be, we're not going to blanket every store, so we don't have the resources to visit every store and scan every item. We just want to hopefully get a representation of what is out there. And if you are following the WIC approved food guide, what you have in stock, another store will most likely have in stock as well. So I mean, it shouldn't be an issue if you happen to be out of a particular UPC. But if you do have any concerns regarding that, just let me know. Happy to help you out.
All right. Thanks again, Michael. Super helpful for you to keep your eye on the chat. I sure do appreciate that. Well, again, from Hawaii WIC staff and FIS CDP, we thank you for your time. We'll be getting in touch with you as this project moves along, and feel free to have open communication with us. We see everyone as partners. Thanks again, and I'll give you the remaining day back. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.